Hi, ArcfieldWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Thursday morning, February 16th. A lot I want to get through this morning. I want to start off with the latest look at the sea surface temperature anomalies around the world. This particular map comes from the Canadian Met Center, and again, it shows colder than normal conditions in blue, warmer than normal conditions in yellow, orange, or red. This particular line represents the equator. It's the 0 degree latitude. And right here is our La Nina, which is diminishing, certainly compared to a few months ago. The colder than normal conditions over the equatorial part of the Pacific Ocean have shrunk in size. A lot of near normal conditions surrounding it now, and even some warmer than normal conditions showing up now across the west coast of South America. There certainly are some hints that this La Nina may disappear completely over the next a few months, in evolving into an El Nino, a warmer than normal condition type of a water pattern here, water temperature pattern later this summer going into the upcoming fall. But again, we have La Nina conditions continuing here as we go towards the latter stages of the winter season, but certainly weaker than it was just a couple of months ago. Well, one of the reasons I wanted to start off with the latest sea surface temperature anomaly chart is to, first of all, reflect upon the ongoing La Nina in the equatorial part of the Pacific Ocean. By the way, this is the third winter season in a row. We've had back-to-back-to-back La Nina winters. And what we're seeing here is the typical pattern of a La Nina winter in terms of precipitation and temperatures. And I wanted to point out the warmer, drier conditions here across the southern part of the U.S., extending into the southeastern coastline here for the typical La Nina winter. And certainly the high pressure ridging in the upper part of the atmosphere has been very persistent in this part of the nation, this part of North America over the last couple of months. Continues to be the case where we have a lot of cold air up across Canada, and it's having trouble penetrating down into the northern part of the U.S., into the Mid-Atlantic region, for example. And that's all because of this high-pressure ridging that is rather typical of a La Nina winter. Now, there's a possibility that this high-pressure ridging will kind of retreat, give up some of its ground later next week, going into the end of the month of February, maybe even into the early part of March. There will be a ton of cold air up across Canada over the next couple of weeks. And again, it may make some inroads from north to south into the northern U.S., but this high pressure ridging here will continue to flex its muscle, and we'll see if it indeed gives up a little bit of ground towards the end of next week, going into the end of the month of February. Well, let's take a closer look at the upper level ridge that's been parked over the western Atlantic, at times across the southern part of the nation. This is the ensemble run of the European model from 0Z last night, showing the 500 millibar height anomalies. And we'll go out towards the end of the month of February and even perhaps into the early part of March, looking at the 500 millibar height anomalies. Very mild conditions today across the eastern U.S. Don't be surprised if there are some record-breaking highs. Certainly the 60s are likely in D.C., Philadelphia, New York City. However, there will be some rainfall coming later on this afternoon, into tonight, and even into the day on Friday. It looks like there'll be some rain in the Mid-Atlantic region, much of the eastern U.S., first associated with a warm front, and then a cold frontal system will bring about additional showers later tonight into tomorrow morning for much of the Mid-Atlantic region. Let's walk through the next several days here. We have a cold shot coming for the eastern part of the nation, primarily focused on Friday night and Saturday. It will be downright cold, maybe lower 20s for some overnight lows, even in the I-95 corridor region, late Friday night going into Saturday morning. But as has been the case for the past several weeks, this cold snap will be short-lived. Again, basically a Friday night, Saturday kind of a time frame for this shot of cold air, this cold air outbreak into the eastern part of the nation. By the time we get to Sunday and Monday, temperatures rebound nicely, and that's because of the upper level ridging. Here we are now into Sunday morning, and here we go. The typical pattern we have seen for the last several weeks. Higher heights than normal, higher pressures than normal in the upper part of the atmosphere across the eastern U.S., the southern U.S. Meanwhile, a lot of cold air bottled up over Canada and the northwestern part of the U.S. Now, we'll go into next week, and here we are. This particular model run, the European ensemble run from last night, has one piece of the cold air dropping south and east all the way into the mid-Atlantic region during the early part of next week. And then let's see what happens here. We have the upper level ridge kind of squashed down to the south a little bit by the middle part of next week. It then returns in intensity up along the Atlantic seaboard, and that's been the kind of a pattern lately. Every time cold air tries to make an advance from the northern U.S., Canada, into the mid-Atlantic region, for example, it runs into an atmospheric roadblock with this upper-level ridge. Maybe a short-lived cold snap, let's say next Tuesday, for example, but then a return to the warmer than normal conditions. Now, we go out farther in time, and here we have, look at this intensification of this ridge in that same general area. If this does take place, this will be perhaps record-breaking type warmth over the southeastern part of the nation by the time we get to the end of next week, let's say Thursday and Friday of next week, a week from right now. Then we go beyond that, and this is in the speculation phase out past 10 days or so. We're at the 10-day mark right here now into Sunday, February 26th. Watch what happens on this particular time period here as we get to the end of the month of February. This is all the way out to Monday, February 27th. That high pressure ridging pushes all the way down to the south. It kind of gives up some of its ground, and all this upper level, lower heights than normal, this upper level low pressure and colder air, it tends to make some inroads into at least the northern half of the nation if this were to come to fruition. And we'll see as we get to this time period. We have certainly had some indications of this type of occurrence happening over the last several weeks, and it just did not materialize. We'll see if this happens. We're going all the way out to the end of February, Tuesday, February 28th. And this is a cold-looking pattern for much of the northern half of the nation, with that high-level ridging squashed all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico region. And we'll see if this actually happens. This is all the way out almost 2 weeks from now to Wednesday, March 1st. So we'll see what actually evolves here. Again, this is the speculation phase. Anything past 10 days I kind of considered into the speculation phase from the European ensemble run of last evening. Well, how does this translate to 850 milliwatt temperature anomalies? Again, from the European ensemble run. Here we are looking at 5-day averages. This is the current 5-day period that extends all the way out to February 21st from today, February 16th. On average, the next 5 days warmer than normal across the eastern third of the nation. Despite that brief cold shot Friday night and Saturday, the entire 5-day period will average above normal. But look at this cold air over Canada. That's pretty impressive. And very cold across much of the western U.S. Some unusual places in California may actually get snow over the next several days in this cold wave for the western U.S. Let's go forward. This is now days 2 to 6, all the way out to February 22nd. And then we go out the next 5 days, the next 5 days, the next 5 days. And here we have a continuation of what looks like that upper level ridging dominating the scene across the southern and eastern part of the U.S., but a very, very expansive area of colder than normal conditions across Canada. And it is at this time that it may start to make some inroads. Now we're all the way out to days 10 to 14 in that speculation phase. February 25th to March 2nd, the average for that 5-day period. And look at this expansive area of below normal conditions, with the warmer than normal conditions kind of given up some ground and pushed all the way down in the Gulf of Mexico. Will go all the way out here days 11 to 15, the end of this particular model run. It has much of the Middle Atlantic region in slightly colder than normal conditions. The Northeast U.S. in pretty significantly colder than normal conditions, and just a very, very expansive area here at the end of February, early March, in terms of the 850 millibar temperature anomalies. That high pressure region gets pushed all the way down into the Gulf of Mexico region. We'll see if this actually comes true. We'll follow it certainly closely over the next several days. Well, let's kind of shift gears here and go to the Canadian model run. This is the Canadian total snowfall map for the next 10 days from last night's 0Z run. And a couple things I want to point out. First of all, a lot of snow across much of the northern U.S., the upper Midwest, going into the northern part of New England, and really the entire northern half of the nation gets significant snow. Again, very little, if any, across that D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, maybe the Boston corridor, the I-95 corridor has had a lot of lacking snow this year, and it looks like it continues over the next 10 days. But look at what happens out in California again. Let me clear the deck here and take a look here in California, right here, the Sierra Nevada, right in this particular region, gets pounded again with significant snow over the next 10 days. This is showing up in white right in this region right here. That is virtually off the scales here. We're talking 48 inches or more over the next 10 days in the Sierra Nevada. So they've had a tremendous snowpack in the Sierra Nevada, one of the deepest snowpacks in decades, maybe going back to the 60s as an example here for that snowpack in the Sierra Nevada. Why is that important? Well, the snow in the eastern California mountains really acts as a water source during the spring, summer, and fall with the snow belt. It's an important water source, and certainly getting a deep snowpack this time of the year is a good thing for the state of California. And they certainly had a drier period for a few weeks, but it looks like more storminess is coming to California, and it will include some significant snowfall over the Sierra Nevada mountain range. Now, notice here, all of this virtually non-existent snow over the next 10 days, and that is all a result of that strong upper-level ridge centered over the southern U.S., over the eastern U.S., and it kind of flexes its muscle and shoots up to the north at times, but this is all the result of that very persistent La Nina type of pattern with ridging over the southern states. All right, let's get into the current forecast for the continental U.S. First of all, on the severe weather side of things, this is the outlook from the Storm Prediction Center based in Norman, Oklahoma for today and tonight. And indeed, there's a tornado threat for some of the Tennessee Valley, the deep south here, an enhanced threat for severe thunderstorm activity with a strong cold front coming first across the Mississippi Valley, then the Tennessee Valley, and it moves into the eastern U.S. early on Friday. Let's now go to the Canadian model run for the surface weather maps. And here we go, and here is the development of that storminess over the Mississippi Valley, the Tennessee Valley. This is the forecast map for right now, this morning from last night's 0Z run of the Canadian model. By the way, cold enough for some accumulating snow, and this has been the pattern over the past several weeks. A lot of accumulating snow over the upper part of the Midwest, but very little, if any, over the I-95 corridor region. Let's go a little bit ahead of time, and here is a cold frontal system that again could spawn some strong to severe thunderstorm activity over the Tennessee Valley, for example, parts of the deep south later today into tonight. And that threat for severe weather does include isolated tornadoes. Meanwhile, upper Midwest, northern Illinois, parts of Wisconsin, Michigan, accumulating snow. We have kind of a warm frontal system. You can kind of envision a warm front extending out right here, the cold front extending this way from that surface low. Warm frontal rains in the Middle Atlantic region this afternoon. And then cold frontal rains move into the Middle Atlantic region late tonight into Friday morning. Some interior New England snowfall midday on Friday in the cold side, on the cold side of that frontal system. Then we have a shot of cold air coming into the northeast, mid-Atlantic region late tomorrow night, during the day on Saturday. But as has been the case in many recent weeks, cold snap here will be short-lived, focused on Friday night and Saturday. We'll go farther ahead in time. And here we go. By the end of the weekend, high pressure shifts to off the eastern seaboard. That opens up the door for southwesterly flow along the Atlantic seaboard. By the end of the upcoming weekend, turns noticeably milder on Sunday compared to Saturday, and it stays relatively mild early next week. And then we'll see the battle develop in here. We go through next week, and we have a lot of cold air across this part of the U.S. and northern states, and all of Canada, virtually all of Canada, will be below normal. This will be just kind of a battleground area. And one of the things we'll watch for the development of high pressure over the southeastern part of Canada. That, if it really were to intensify, it could bring down some cold air in this fashion, and it'll really be battling that persistent high pressure region, which is pushing warmer air up into the southern states. So we could have certainly a battle setting up later next week between the persistent high pressure ridging over the southeastern states, the southern U.S., and high pressure that may form over southeastern Canada later next week. Let's go out farther in time, and here we have another accumulating snow event for the upper part of the Midwest and northern plains. This is a week from now, next Thursday, February 23rd, and we'll go out a little bit farther in time, and this is the time period where we have another cold frontal system passing through the mid-Atlantic region. And this right here, moving in this fashion, certainly has a lot of cold air behind it. A very, very strong Canadian high pressure system, 1051 millibars next Friday. This is a week from tomorrow, and a lot of cold air. How far to the south and east can this cold air penetrate with this high pressure ridging down here? It remains to be seen, but there certainly are some signs, at least from the ensemble run, the European model. This will give up some ground. There will be some inroads in that cold air push late next week, going into the latter part of the month of February. This is all the way out to Saturday, February 25th, and at this particular time, a lot of cold air, even in the Mid-Atlantic region. We'll follow the progression of this cold air over the next several days. Again, very, very expansive area of colder than normal conditions, northern U.S., all of Canada. Later next week, some of that cold air will make its way into the Mid-Atlantic region, and it all depends on how much ground that persistent upper-level region will give up across the southern U.S., the southeastern U.S. later next week. Something we'll monitor here at ArcfieldWeather.com. That's it for now. For ArcfieldWeather.com, this has been meteorologist Paul Dorian.